Hi. All right, so good morning. We got a little repair I'm gonna do here. So I'm gonna shoot a quick video. So this is a pretty common type of damage that we see come in the shop here. And what happened is the skier hit some sort of rock or hard, material out of the mountain, and then they hit it so hard that it's actually stretched the edge out and delammed and separated the edge from the base material or core material. And so what we need to do here is we need to reattach the edge back down to the core. We're going to cut out this damaged plastic here so that way we can get some eyes on it in the inside and see kind of what we need for the repair. And then when we do our final patch of putting a new piece of base in, we're going to cut a little bit bigger just to make sure that we can have a really nice patch. But the first one's just going to be for exploratory reasons, so we can kind of dig in there, see what we have going on for damage, what we need to do for repairs, and get that fixed. So one thing I'm going to do is, if you take a true bar or some sort of straight edge, and you look down the line of this, you can see that of course there's some sort of curve to the edge itself, but you can see that there's a small bit here that's protruding out in the middle. So that's telling me that the edge itself is pushed out from the line of where it was originally placed from the factory. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up. We're going to squeeze this back together so we can get this edge brought back in and get it back in line where it's supposed to go. We'll get it all epoxied back down and make sure that this is all really secured and strong, ready to go ski again. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to flip up the ski, and I want to take some sort of really strong square screwdriver. So as I push on this, you can see that there's a little bit of movement in the edge itself. So by pressing on that, that just gives me the guarantee that yes, this thing has separated, and I do have about 3 to 4 inches of edge coming up here that we need to take care of. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to inspect where the damage is located and tell me whether or not I need to remove this toe piece or the heel piece to make sure that I can get my plates flush on this ski. You can see it's kind of in line with this. My plates are going to need to set over top of this, so I'm going to actually take this toe piece off of the binding or off the ski. Now I've got enough surface area here that I can work that I don't need to mess with the heel piece. I can leave this on here while we do the repair. Over the holes, just to make sure that there's no epoxy. Set my tape on here, where I'm leaving a little bit of a gap between the tape line and the edge. Flip this up, we'll do one more strip just to make sure that the top sheet's really nice and covered of any drips coming down. Painter's tape is kind of your best friend to make all this work. So don't be shy to put some of this down to make sure that keep the skis nice and protected from any of the epoxy we're gonna have. Put on some PPE, don't forget your eyes. So I'm just gonna cut a little rectangle area, just kind of get a first assessment of how bad it really is in there. Is the core crushed? Is the sidewall destroyed? Is the edge cracked underneath? That's what I'm looking for. Dig this up now. Expose this edge. See how easy that came off since it's all delammed anyways. So in first inspection here, you can see that the edge is loose. Everything looks to be fairly intact inside. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually cut this out a little bit farther. I don't think there's too much more to go in there, and we'll get cutting. Here. Got this little bit extra. This might be a little bit harder since it's not as delaminated as the first bit that we cut out. And we'll just tap this out. Now I can really see what I'm working with. I'm going to take one of my big C-clamps. This is a 5-inch C-clamp. And I'm going to do just a quick little pressure test to see how much I need to get this edge to get back in line, whether or not I can use just the clamp itself, or if I need to use like a pressure bar like this file I use. So what I'll do with this is I'll put this vertically against the sidewall and the side edge. So if I put 2 of these, one on each side of the wound, and gently put some pressure on it, I can easily get this to line right back up where it came from. Looks like everything's gonna go swimmingly. So the next thing we need to do is make a patch. I'm gonna find the center point where I wanna start this. I need my patch to come from about here to beyond the wound. That gives me a quick little reference kind of size of where I should put this patch. So looking at that, I mean, that almost lines up exactly with the base patch. I'll see where the deepest part is. So the deepest part of this wound is here. I'm gonna set this on that edge, on that line, and I'm gonna make a little mark, maybe a 1/2 millimeter. When I cut the base material, I want to go very lightly with the knife and just let the knife score the material, so I'm not forcing the knife through. After a couple passes, it'll cut through just perfectly. Now we have our little piece. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Is people always wonder, how do you make the piece I just cut match this without using like a stamp or something like that? So what I'm going to do is I'll actually use this piece as my stencil on the ski itself, and I'll cut out this patch piece on the ski right through the base material itself of the ski. Then this thing should theoretically pop right in, and I want to really tape this down well getting started. So now I want to be really precise when I set this along the edge material so that it lines up perfectly when we cut all this out. Really making sure that we hold it perfectly flat. I'm going to lay the tape on top of the patch. Okay, so I got it all taped up real nice and tight. Clean edge on the corner of the razor blade. Now I'm going to really be careful to try to be as precise as possible with my cuts. So like we cut before, nice light pressure. We'll cut the other side down. And the fun part. So now when I get close to the corner, I want to turn around and cut from the material. So let's peel this patch off of here. Now that we've traced our sway all the way around. Now I'm going to double check my corners. And this is where a really sharp, fresh razor blade is your best friend. Press nice and gently. And there we go. Cut a little corner or something. So we got a little bit started. We'll grab the needle nose. We'll start a little roll here. See if we can get this to peel on out of here for us. Really gently get up underneath there. Get carried away. Okay. Base material. There's a small teethnal layer that runs through the middle of this ski. So that's where it was giving me a little bit more of an issue getting the base material removed. And it peeled really easily off the keys of the edge itself. Do a little dry fit here. See how our patch sets in there? So it clicked in pretty good. When this all gets clamped together, you'll see that there's a small little gap kind of on the left side here where this edge is. And as I squeeze this ski together, this base material is going to be kind of a stopping point to give me a threshold of how far to push this edge in to get it to sit flush. I'm going to rough up everything in the bottom of this. So I like to put a little tape pad down, and then we'll get the epoxy flowing. Always like to make a little extra just to make sure, and it takes time and experience to know what's enough, what's too much, and then you still swing and miss sometimes. So, whoa. So I really want to work this stuff around first and make sure I can get a really good mixture. So with this whole puddle, I only need one little drop. Now I just need to spend a minute to blend the color into all the puddle. So I'll put some tape down. Leave maybe a millimeter or two of base exposed so the tape doesn't interfere with the patch. So a little bit of heat, just quickly. Don't want to overheat it, don't want to ruin my tape or warp my patch or anything. So I'm just pressuring the edge up. I like to open and close it when I call breathing technique. Really just works the epoxy down in there. I don't want to put too much in there, but enough to where it is going to be sufficiently full. And I do want it to squirt out a little bit when I put the pressure down on the patch to make sure that I have a sufficient amount. Core set, we will paint a little bit of epoxy onto this patch. I want to make sure that it really flows and settles nicely when it all goes together. Okay. And push it into place. Now I'm going to clean all this off. Set this on here. Give it a little bit of side pressure. And then I don't want to finish squeezing anything until I get the down pressure of the patch. 1/8" steel plates. Center this on here. And I'll slowly squeeze the epoxy out to try to work any air bubbles and possibilities of that out of the ski. So now that we're pretty close to being set, we're going to slowly crank these down. One more in the middle, and then we'll do one more on the other end there. So then as I add pressure here, I'm going to double check that I've got that similar adequate pressure that we had when we did our little dry test earlier on. Okay, one final clamp on the outside. Just to make sure we got good secure clamps. Everything else looks great. All right, we're gonna take this thing and put it up in the hot box. We're gonna bake the ski in here and let the epoxy cure approximately 3 hours in this hot box. And it sets up quite nicely just like that. So we'll stick it in there, close the door, turn on the power, set the timer, and we'll come back in 3 hours. All right, and we're back. We're gonna clean up our bench here. We've got the ski here, just pulled it out of the hot box, let her cool off. So I'm gonna pop the clamps off of here. Peel off the plates. Okay, plate number 2. Always push the chisel away from you, away from your hands. Got it pretty well cleaned off on there. Got all the tape off. There's a little bit left at the bottom there. We'll grab the last loose piece. Shoop. There we go. So you can see the tape came off pretty clean. There's a little bit of excess glue that peeled off the side there, but we'll do a quick little sanding of the sidewall, and that'll be back to good as new. So we're gonna take a metal scraper, like this one here. I like it really, really sharp. Just like that, a few strokes took care of that. Now we'll come to the side wall of the ski on the top of the edge, so we're gonna scrape that down as well. And then we will finish up this repair with the sandpaper on the base edge. Same grit, my finished grit, 220. I'm now just gonna sand off this little bit of residue of glue that's left over. So that's all really clean and smooth. Okay, then last but not least, before we finish it in the shop at home, I would finish it like this, where I'm gonna wrap the sandpaper on the square dowel, take some water, squirt quite a bit on the base here to lubricate the sandpaper, maybe a little spray on the paper to help it. So nice and easy, back and forth, just lightly blending in the patchwork to make it level with the other base material around it. Always making sure there's lots of water on here. Take a towel, dry off the ski. Take that little piece of Scotch-Brite. I'm just gonna buff this out. You can do this on the square dowel again if you need. And then I'm gonna do some larger passes here just to blend all this kind of together. Okay, so here's what it looks like in the finished product. We're still gonna run a belt grind here in the shop, but this is what the edge repair looks like now that we've got the patch done. You can see the sidewall looks really crisp and clean. There's a tiny little dark spot from where some of the epoxy sat. Other than that, we'll sharpen the edge, clean up the steel. Should be good to go. If you're just doing this at home and you don't have a belt grinder, in the end, once you've buffed this out, you're good to go. You can either just wax this with the iron and get going, or you can just crayon on a little bit of wax and then help buff it in with Scotch-Brite. And that'll help just with a little bit of wax, blending everything nice and clean together. We'll clean up the side edge just a little bit, get that nice and true, and we are done.